So for this tutorial, we're going to be using PowerPoint in Windows. The steps and directions will be slightly different if you're using Mac, and that will be a different presentation that I'm going to record. So to get started, what you want to do when you first create your PowerPoint slideshow is to go into kiosk mode. So that can be found under slideshow, and then you click on set up slideshow, and under show type you're going to select this browse data kiosk full screen. Click OK. Now what that's going to do is when you are presenting your slideshow, you will not be able to use mouse clicks to advance the slide. You will not be able to use the keyboard to advance the slide. You'll have to have some sort of button on the screen to advance to the next slide, which is an integral part to making a PowerPoint game. On slide 2 here, I'm just going to explain the basics of a PowerPoint game. So in a PowerPoint game, your cursor is the hero of your game, or the player that you're controlling. And the objective in this game that I'm going to show you how to make, the objective is to just move your cursor safely from a starting block, which I'm using this green shape with the word start in it, and you're going to move your cursor safely to the exit block. And we'll throw all sorts of obstacles and enemies in the way as the levels get progressively more difficult. Anything could be a starting block or an ending block. You don't have to use these particular shapes. So when you are creating a PowerPoint game, each level is going to be composed of 2 slides. One slide is acting as the entrance to the level. This is an example here of an entrance slide, and the purpose is to get the player to put their cursor over this starting block. That will make sure that their cursor is in the right location when the level starts. The second reason we need a level entrance slide is so that when a player dies or fails to get to the end point without hitting an obstacle, we need a screen to take them back to so that they can start over, and that will be this slide entrance. So to see how this works, we're going to go into presentation mode here, and I'm just going to move my cursor over the start block, and you'll see I don't need to click, I just move my cursor over it, and now we're into the level itself. So that's what the starting block does. It gets you into the level. And now this is an example of a level. So here's my cursor, and what I'm going to do here is just navigate this maze. I want to make sure not to hit any of the walls, otherwise I'll lose. So I will just run into the wall just to show you how I will be returned to that previous slide that I was showing you, the level entrance slide. So if you die or fail, you have to go back and start again. And if you get successfully to the exit, you will then be taken to the next slide, which is the next level's entrance slide. Great. Now I'm going to exit presentation mode here on slide 5, and on slide 6 we're gonna go through the steps of how I created the previous level. So this particular slide here is going to be our entrance. So here's how we would customize that or create that. So I have a block here already created. You can use any shape, any image, anything you want. It could be text, anything you'd like, any object in PowerPoint to be the starting block. So to code it, what I want to do is select that object. I want to be sure not to click in to edit the text. If I see a cursor, that will apply this format to the text and not to the shape itself. So make sure you're clicking the shape and you don't see your insertion point blinking there. We're going to go up, and this is something we're going to do a whole lot. So pay attention here. We're going to insert, and we're looking for action. Insert action. When this screen pops up, be aware that we have actions that are based on a mouse click, so clicking a button on your mouse, or if we click on this tab, we have actions that are based on a mouse over. I prefer making my games with mouse overs so that you don't need to click on anything to play the game unless you have something like an enemy that you need to kill by clicking on them. Otherwise, I stick with mouse overs. So on a mouse over, the action that I'm looking for is a hyperlink to the next slide. So that will bring me from this entrance slide into my level. And that's all I have to do for that button. Click OK. Now I can test it out, run my presentation. Your buttons will not work in edit mode. You have to be in presentation mode for these actions to work. And now when I move my mouse over the start button, it proceeds to take me to slide 7. Okay, let's hit escape to go back to edit mode. So how do I make that maze, and how does that work? So what we want to do here, any objects that I bump into along the way to the exit, those are obstacles. Those are things that would cause me to start over. So it's very similar to what we did with the start button on the previous slide in that we're using actions. So first, just to get this started, I'm going to bring in a shape, and I'm going to use a rectangle here, and I'm just going to make a wall. I'm going to make a wall that's going across at the top here. So this wall will be an obstacle. And then I'm going to make another wall going up and down. And I'm just going to make 2 for now, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to make 2 walls, one going across, one going up and down. Now I'm going to program these walls to be obstacles. So to do that, just like we did with the start button, we're going to select the wall. We're going to go up to Insert, Action, change to mouse over. I guarantee at some point you're going to forget to do this, and it's going to be a mouse click, and your game's not going to work right. That's something you want to be aware of, and let your students know they'll make that mistake too. Mouse over, and this time we're going to hyperlink to the previous slide, because when we hit an obstacle, we want to start over. We want to start the level again. We lost, we failed. So the previous slide for any obstacles. Click OK. Now I'm going to click on my vertical wall here, do the same thing, action, mouse over, hyperlink to previous slide. So why did I make 2 walls like that? Well, the idea here is now that we have these 2 walls, we can just copy and paste the walls and they will maintain the formatting that I just applied to them. If we didn't do this, we'd make all our walls and we'd have to go to each individual wall and add that action, which is kind of tedious. So this way, what I can do is just hold the Control key and drag a shape while holding the Control key, and it'll make a copy. So now I have a bottom wall here, and I'm going to shrink this one down. So now I'm going to do the same thing with this wall. And what I'm going to do is kind of box in the area that I want the players to stay in. Oop, that copy didn't work. Hold Control and drag, there we go. You want to box them in. And I always recommend boxing in the players at least around the perimeter of the screen. That way they can't cheat and move around your objects. Control, and I'm just going to keep making these walls here just to make a simple pattern, just holding Control there and clicking and dragging my walls to make duplicates. And this is fine. Something like this will work just for demonstration purposes. Now in this case, the start button is not programmed to do anything. It's just a shape. It's just hanging out there. The exit button we have programmed, I believe already. Let me check. Nope, we haven't programmed that. So let's do that now. So with the exit button, we want to go to action on a mouse over and hyperlink to the next slide. You won, you move on to the next slide. Click OK. And then let's test out our level here. Now I'm already in a danger zone. So my mouse is down in the wall here, so I'm going to move and it starts me over. That's okay. Now start over. and exit. Great. I will tell you that, something your students are going to have to do and you're going to have to do is test your levels. You're going to have to bump into every wall to make sure it works and sends you back to the beginning. That's part of troubleshooting and error testing your level. Okay, let's move on to slide 8. Now let's talk about enemies. So now we know how to create a slide with an entrance block, which takes us into a level. We know how to program walls to send us back to the entrance slide. We know how to program a block to take us to the next slide. Well, now we have to fill our levels with some interesting obstacles. Those obstacles can be anything. But I'm old school as far as video games go. I kind of think of obstacles as enemies, like Goombas in Super Mario Brothers, that kind of thing. So what we want to do is to make some enemies. But I do want to point out before we do that my entrance to this next level, look how it's smaller, and I moved it. Now when you go to the next slide, you're going to see why I moved it and why I made it smaller. This button's already programmed for us, so we don't have to do anything with it. But look on slide 9 now. See how my entrance is in the middle? You can put your entrance anywhere, and you can make it any size. So make the entrance, the important thing is that this location of the entrance is the same as the entrance to the actual level. That way, when the player starts the level, they're not already failing, they're in a wall or about to be attacked by an enemy or something like that. Okay, lots of text over here. I'm just going to walk you through each step. So I have introduced here, so everything's been programmed. The walls are already set to send us back a slide. The exit has already been programmed, I believe, to take us to the next slide. Nope, it does not. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So the exit will take us to the next slide. Oh, see what I just did there? See how the word became a hyperlink? I'm going to do Command or Control Z there to undo that. That's because I clicked and had my cursor in the word exit. Don't want to do that. So let's select the shape. Even the teacher makes mistakes constantly, sometimes more than the students. Mouse over, hyperlink to next slide, click OK. All right, but the walls have already been programmed. As you can see, mouse over previous slide. So that's already been done. So what we want to do now is get this enemy doing something interesting so that we can avoid it. So we're going to start here, and what I want to do is have this enemy move around this space. Okay, so it'll make it difficult for me to get by it. So to make this an enemy, it's very simple. All we have to do is, just like a wall, go up to Insert Action, and on a mouse over, it's going to hyperlink to the previous slide, because previous means I lost. Click OK. But if it's just sitting there, it's not too difficult to avoid, so we want to give it some movement. That brings us to the animations panel up here. And the animation tools in PowerPoint are phenomenal. I tell my students that if they can imagine an object moving in some way, they can probably recreate that using PowerPoint. Okay, so what I want to do here, in this case, we have all sorts of animations to choose from. We have entrance animations, which will make an object appear, emphasis animations, which will make an object kind of dance around and do different things, and exit animations, which will make them disappear. But I also have paths. So if I scroll down, here we go. We have motion paths. Okay, I'm going to choose a shape in this case, and it's a circle by default, but that's okay. I can change it from there. Once I select that shape, over here under Effects Options, I can have a different shape. So I can change it from a circle to, in this case, I'm going to go with a square. Now I get a little preview of that motion. And once I get the preview, once that's done, you'll see a dotted outline which represents the path where this spiky ball will travel. I'm going to click on that dotted line to select it. It's going to be a little tricky. And when I click to select it, I will get all sorts of resize handles. So I can use these handles to change the size and dimensions of that path. So now it will travel a larger path. So at this point, I want to introduce you to the animation pane, which is a button, a real cool button that will bring up a window that you may not have ever seen. So since I have an animation here, I'm going to click animation pane here, and this is what will appear. What the animation pane is a visual representation of all the animations on a single slide. So in this case, I've only added one animation indicated by this number here, and this is the animation over here represented in the animation pane. The reason I want to show you this is there are some extra options that are only available from this drop down over here. Okay. Now a lot of options are available. If I select this animation, I do have some options up here as far as when the animations start, how long they last, so on and so forth. But in this case, the options I'm looking for aren't up here. So this is what I'm looking for. Let's click on this little drop down arrow here and go to timing. And on timing, we have several options that we're going to want to turn on. First of all, we want the start not to be on a click. We want to choose with previous. In other words, that animation will start as soon as we get into this slide. I don't have to click on anything, it'll just start right away. And then I'm going to, no delay for this one. Duration, I'm good with 2 seconds. Repeat is important on this particular enemy because it's going to just continue to go around and around and around. It's not going to start and stop. So I'm going to go to repeat, and I'm going to choose until the end of the slide. In other words, it's going to repeat forever. Okay. Now there's this tab for effect. Click on that. And we have smooth start and smooth end. I'm going to leave that on for now so I can show you what that looks like. But let's go ahead and click OK. We'll get a little preview of that animation. But if I want to see it looping, I have to go into our presentation mode. So I'll do that. And what you will see is the spiky ball will move around. But you'll notice that at the beginning and the end, it stops. So it stops, comes to a complete stop, and then starts up again. That was that setting we were just looking at that we're going to go back and modify. I want it to move steadily and constant in a linear fashion. I don't want it to slow down and start up again. So I'm going to click on that animation, go to my options here, go to timing, and then go to effect. And I'm going to bring this smooth start down to 0 and 0. Also going to point out here, auto reverse. I'm not going to turn that on in this case, but if you want your enemy to say walk in a straight line and then come back along that line, auto reverse is what you would want. You could turn on auto reverse and then have the shape repeat under timing, or the animation repeat, and then it will just travel back and forth, kind of like old school video games where the enemies just wander back and forth. Click OK, and now let's preview it again. There's the ball moving, and you can see, now I could go back and change the duration to make the ball travel slower or faster. If I make the duration, say 1 second, the ball will travel twice as fast. If I make it 4 seconds, it'll be traveling twice as slow. This is an interesting little glitch that happens in PowerPoint. When I don't move, like in this case, the objects will sort of just travel through you. It's kind of just a glitch. Not a glitch, it's probably more of a feature of PowerPoint. But anyway, it's when I'm in motion that the enemies will affect me. So that's kind of a limitation you want to keep in mind when you're designing your games. Now with this animation, looking pretty cool, but the enemy's a little stagnant. I want to give him, I guess it's a him, a little more motion, a little more life. So let's do that. So what we can do is we can apply multiple animations to the same object. On Windows, to do that is you select the shape and go up here to add animation. If I just pick an animation, it will actually replace my previous animation, which was that path. I don't want to do that. I want to add an animation on top of the path. And I'm going to look for a spin. So under emphasis, spin, click on that, get a little preview of it. And then if you look over here in the animation pane, you'll see now I have two animations. One is for the path, one is for the spin. But the way it's set right now is the spin won't occur until we click the object. I don't want that. So I'm going to highlight the spin, and I am going to change it. You can change it under timing. You can change it from this menu right here, start with previous, or you can also change it up here with the start. So one way or another, we're going to go to with previous. That way we have one animation that starts automatically, or I'm sorry, we have two animations that start automatically, like so. And now it's spinning, a little more life to it. But my spin stopped. Why did my spin stop? Because we didn't set it to repeat. So let's click on the spin animation here and go down to timing. And we want it to repeat forever till the end of the slide, which is forever. I can also change the speed, how fast it's traveling. Let's take it to 1 second. So it'll be spinning very fast. And then we'll preview our slide. That looks much better, a lot cooler. Okay. So now that I have one enemy made and all the coding is set up, I can easily duplicate this. I can just hold that control key and drag that spiky ball, and I can have another enemy here. I can resize that enemy's path, and now I have two. And when I run my slideshow, we'll see there's now two. Now I might do something like change the speed of one of them so they're not traveling in sync with one another, or you could have one travel in the other direction. I might do that. So I'm going to choose this outer enemy, and I'm going to choose that animation path here. So again, I could do this setting over here, but in this case I know that to reverse the path it's under effect options. I'm going to scroll down, reverse path, and there we go. Pretty cool. I think it's cool. All right, let's get into some more complicated things. So with just those two ideas, having enemies and having walls that you bump into, you can do a whole heck of a lot. All right, so slide 10 now. The start block has already been coded for you in advance, so we don't need to do that. Let's go take a look at the level. So the idea here with slide 11, with this level, is we are going to have a hidden exit. So an exit that we will not be able to see. And we're going to have that exit only appear once the player clicks on this key. So that uses something called triggers, which is a really, really powerful option in PowerPoint, where you can time certain animations based on certain actions. So for example, maybe you want an animation to occur when you click a button, or you want a sound to occur when you click a button. Those are triggers. But before we do that, I want to show you the selection pane. So this is the animation pane over here. There's another pane available called the selection pane. If we choose any object on the screen and go to shape format, there we go. Under shape format, in the arrange section, you'll see a button for selection pane. You may never have noticed this before, but if you click on that, you will now have two tabs over here, one for animation, one for selection. Oops, And this is what the selection pane looks like. It is basically a view that shows you every object on the screen and what it's named. Now, some of these I have renamed. So for example, my enemies, which are groups of shapes, each of these enemies, these red-faced baddie as I call them, is just a picture of a face, growly face, combined with an oval. I just grouped those two things together and gave that a name. But you can see a lot of these shapes don't have names other than just rectangle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth. So when you're working with triggers, and the reason I'm showing you this, when you're working with triggers, especially if you have a lot of objects on your screen, it's really useful to know which object you're looking for and what its name is. So I need to know what this object is named, this key. And right now it's named rectangle 27. So I can either remember that, or probably more usefully, I can double click on rectangle 27 over here and rename it. And I'll call it key. And while I'm at it, let me see what the exit, okay, level exit, this is already named, so that's good. I wanted to know what this was called as well. I don't really need to know what the other names are, but you could customize the names of all the shapes in your presentation. This is also a really great view where you can lock things in place, show and hide them. This is just a very useful view when you have a lot of elements on your screen and you're trying to organize them in some way. It also works, I believe you can click and drag to change the order or how items are arranged on top of one another. So this is pretty useful for that as well. If you need something to be moved from the bottom to the top, for example, you can do it from here. Anyway, let's go back to our animation pane. I have 3 animations that are already created here, and they're just the motions or the paths that my red-faced baddies are going to travel on. This red-faced baddie and this red-faced baddie are just traveling on a line. So that's just an animation down where we picked our shapes before. You can see line as an option. That's all I did there. Then with my third red-faced baddie, this guy, I just used a shape again and just did a circle, and I stretched it out. So this baddie will be traveling along that path, and these guys will just be traveling back and forth. So now let's get to this trigger idea. So what we want to do, we kind of need to work backwards, which takes a little while. Once you make a couple levels, you'll start to think this way. So I need to think of the effect before I can think of the cause. The effect is I want this exit block to appear. So I need to add that animation first. So to think about it this way, the cause and effect is click on the key, 1, makes the exit appear, 2. I need to work with 2 first. I need to make that exit appear in order to select the trigger to make that happen. So let me show you. So I'm going to click on the exit block here, which I'm just going to assume isn't coded properly. Let's check because nope. So I'm going to make the exit block, I'm going to code it so that it takes us to the next slide. And now what I'm going to do is go up to animations, and I am going to add, you can add any sort of entrance animation. All entrance animations, until they are triggered, the object is hidden. So any of them will work. I'm going to choose this, let's go with fade, but you can pick any one you want. Okay, so now I have over here in my animation pane, here is my animation for that shape to appear. Now what's important here is what's going to make that appear. So I'm going to select it. And there's 2 ways to get to this trigger. You can either click here and go to, let's look, is it under timing? Yeah, under timing you can see triggers here, or probably easier, there's a trigger button up here. So with that animation selected, I'm going to go up to trigger, And on the click of what will trigger this animation? Well, we want to click the key, which is what we named. So I'll click on that. And what happened there, I'm not sure if you caught it or not, but what happened is now that animation down here got its own little area called trigger key. And what's cool with that is I can add as many animations under this trigger as I want. So not only will clicking the key make the exit disappear, but I can now throw in some other animations and I can drag them down here and have multiple things happen at once. But first, let's just make sure this trigger worked. So I'm going to present from the start here. Okay, and I need to go click on that key without running into the baddie. So you notice I don't have an exit. There's no exit here. But when I click on the key, my exit appears. So the key works. But I want to do something a little bit more here. When I click on that key and the exit appears, I'd like to indicate that I don't need to do anything else with that key by making the key disappear. So what I want to do is select the key, go under my animations, and I want an exit animation. Exit animations work so that the object is visible until something's triggered and then it disappears. So I'm just going to choose, there's one I like for this. Let's do swivel. Yeah, I kind of like that. It turns around and fades away. Okay, so I added that. Now look over here on our animation pane and you'll see that swivel animation appeared over here. I want it down with the trigger because I want the key to disappear upon the trigger of the key being clicked. So all I have to do is grab that animation and drag it down and let go. We're almost done. We're almost complete here. The only thing we need to change is that right now I would have to click 2 times on the key to get to the animation of the key disappearing. And I don't want that. I want the key disappearing animation to happen not on the click, but with the previous animation. So I'm going to go up here to with previous. Alternatively, I could have clicked here and gone to start with previous. A couple different ways to get to the same thing. But now you'll notice I don't have 2 mouse clicks, I just have 1. So let's run it. And what we should have here is when I click the key, the exit will appear, the key will disappear. And now I can move to the exit and I'm successful. So as you're working with this with your students, just be aware that there's multiple different ways to get the same thing accomplished. But I would say a lot, you're gonna want to spend some time going through these options here, especially the effects options and timing options within these animations. There are some instances where you might want an animation to occur after the previous animation. So with timing, you can kind of do just about anything. You could add delays so that one animation starts on time and the next animation doesn't start for, say, 5 seconds. That's an option too. So lots of different options, lots of different things to choose from and to make levels that work for you. Okay, on to this last level. Basically, I just want to show you this one and talk a little bit about it. We're not going to actually have to code anything on here. But the way this level is set up is I have an exit that is hidden underneath this locked fence. And the only way that you can get rid of that locked fence is to find a key, which I've hidden among these bushes. All the while, you have to avoid these beavers or groundhogs or whatever the heck these demon-looking brown creatures are. So I know that seems like a really complicated thing, but let me talk to you about how I did it. So first of all, my fences and my green walls around the perimeter, those are all set to take me back to the previous slide. So those are obstacles you want to avoid. The groundhogs are also obstacles that I need to avoid. So those are all coded to send me back to the previous slide. And they're on an animation. They're on a simple path. That's, you can see over here in my animation pane, they're all traveling along just a linear path on repeat back and forth. So now what I have is these bushes. So quite simply, you'll notice I have the same animation again and again and again. So I just programmed one of these bushes with a trigger so that the bush disappears when the bush is clicked. So trigger picture 4, they're all named picture 4. When I click on picture 4 disappears. So I just made one bush, added a disappear animation to it, made the trigger on the click of itself, the click of that shape, and then once that was done, I just duplicated it, 20-30 times here on the screen. Very quick. And then the only other thing I have going on here is I have a key. You can't see it right now. It's hidden underneath one of these bushes. I won't tell you which one or show you which one. You have to find out on your own. But when you find the key, it will open the gate using the same techniques we just used on the previous level. So here's what it looks like in action. I have my groundhogs, or whatever they are, moving around, and you see when I click on, I'm only going to click on a couple of these because I don't want to show you where the result is, but you can see I'm making those disappear. Underneath one of those is a key. That key will unlock the fence, and then I can exit, and I can't exit until that fence goes away. So yeah, pretty cool. So just a different way to do the same thing, same idea. So that's it. That's our little tutorial for today. Congratulations, you now possess the skills to start making your own PowerPoint games. And with those skills, you can do a ton of cool stuff. Good luck out there. If you have any questions along the way, or you want to shoot me some of the cool projects that your students made, my email is right on the screen now, evan.andre. Andre is ANDRAE. It's often misspelled, @craw.org. Thank you very much.